Welcome to Citizens Forum. This is being filmed on Tuesday, February the 16th. I'd like to start by thanking the volunteer crew and Shaw staff that makes this show possible every week. First part of Citizens Forum is always the Walter and Jack show, and I'm going to start off with a local issue, which is this line on a drawing. This is from one of the options you can choose for sewage treatment. And I'll just say that all the options that the city, the CRD, led by Lisa Helps on this issue, all the options they have on the table include this line. And this line is, as I said last week, other places fight pipelines, we fight poop lines. It's the sewage treatment line that runs from Dallas Road along Bay in all probability, along Cook in all probability up to Bay, and then turns to go to Rock Bay, where one of the treatment plants will be. Now, we have to choose one of these options because that's all that's being presented to us. They all included this pipeline, which I live a block away from Cook. Somehow, in the great public process that we're all part of, I'd never really gotten this through my noggin before. It wasn't really, but now that I know, I find it shocking. And the closing down of Cook Street to put in a pipeline to run sewage back and forth, and there's better options available that they won't tell us about, just seems absolutely bizarre. And we were just talking, and we said it's like the deliberate creation of chaos. And what you said was a little bit scary.
Personally, I'm having a hard time believing it. I mean, maybe I'm just in denial, but it's so harebrained. The whole sewage treatment saga has been just really off the charts. I mean, I mentioned how David Anderson, ex-environment minister in the Trudeau government, called the CRD dysfunctional. And that's being very kind. This is about as weird as it gets. There's no rationale for it. There's no logic to it.
And if there was a rationale and logic, I don't think we'd be opposing it. But
it's just, they say they had this public consultation process, which is such a joke. They never had anything for us to look at, and they were consulting with us, asking us to design a sewage treatment system. Well, that's what you have engineers for, and you have all these people for. But they get out in front of that and consulted us and asked us about where you would like to have a sewage treatment plant. Well, who wants to have one of those in there next door?
And you might, because they're actually quite beautiful buildings.
Well, it could be, but I mean,
yeah.
It's just the start of it, Jack.
Yeah.
I haven't thought this through to critique it because it's just that I just want somebody to wake me up. It's a bad dream. I hope it's a bad dream. And this plan here is so disruptive, you can imagine. They probably would get that finished about the same time as they get the Blue Bridge finished or the new Johnson Street Bridge finished.
So, I mean, this is big. I mean, there's going to be a lot of trouble for a lot of people if this plan goes ahead. And there may be better options on the table. So we, the public, have got to get involved, and we can't get involved, but at least we've got to know what's going on. And the decisions are going to be made possibly before the end of February. So that's how close it is. You've got a story about another scary story with a map. Believe me, folks, it's worth the wait.
The thing to note
is if you can move it up just a little bit.
Marker, and I've highlighted 3 things on the map, and that's Shawnigan Lake. And down on the side there, we have Souk Lake. And then right beside there we have the Cobble Hill Holdings quarry. And that's the quarry that's going to have 350,000 truckloads of contaminated soil dumped there over the next 50 years or whatever.
And you'll notice on the map that the site of that dump is extremely close to Souk Lake, which is the place where the city of Victoria gets its drinking water from. Now, maybe all of this makes sense, but don't you think we should at least know? Shouldn't it be big news in town for a few days that Sauk Lake is, as a matter of fact, very close to the quarry that the contaminated reclamation project, as I think they want us to call it.
Yeah.
It's very close to our drinking water, which is, I mean, you have to wonder, Walt, at the craziness of what is going on around us. I don't know how we ever got into this mess.
Well, Jack, who's in charge of taking care of our drinking water? Who protects our drinking water?
The CRD.
The CRD. You know, the same guys.
Yes. But it's the same thing. I mean, let's talk about the Prosperity Fund. You know, today we're told I mean, you almost have to laugh.
Yeah.
$100 million of our own money is going into the LNG Prosperity Fund. And Christie tells us, and the media tells us, it's a balanced budget. But our debt has gone from $95 billion, debt and long-term agreements that we've pledged to fund, like with BC Hydro. We've gone from $95 billion in 2010 to $165 billion in 2015. So $70 billion of debt has been added on to the people of this province, and we don't even know about it. And they keep telling us, oh, we've got a free press, we've got an opposition, but we don't even know $75 billion that we're going to have to somehow pay.
Well, you know, just to stick with this story a little bit, the province is also involved in protecting our watersheds, and they're also involved in looking at contaminated landfills and where they can go and all that. And this is a huge problem in how they deal with looking at these sites. So I'd encourage everyone that's watching today to go to the Shawnigan Residents Association website and dig in a little bit into the testimony that's being submitted in the Supreme Court as to how this contaminated soil landfill was approved by the province, and it's a shocker. It's stunning, and you wonder how the CRD gets away with it. And by the way, you wonder how local city councils get away with a lot of shenanigans. There's no senior government watching over this. They are as whacked out as the rest. And
the public is unaware because the media doesn't tell it to us in these horrible terms, which is the reality. Instead, it's all caught up in detail. You never get the big picture.
the hard facts of this case are pretty astonishing. And we're in a situation where, of course, maybe the people in Victoria looked at Shawnigan Lake and thought, oh, well, they got a little squabble up there about a landfill site, and might not have felt a lot of affinity or a lot of compassion for them. But guess what? Our watershed is also being threatened, in my view.
Yes. Oh, please hold up the map again. Just
can we do this again?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It may take a few seconds, but it doesn't matter.
Dare we try?
And you will see, folks, that the Cobble Hill Holdings quarry that the people of Shawnigan Lake are so upset about is actually much closer to Sauk Lake. Now, it's in a different watershed, but nobody really seems to know how the water mixes when you go
There's a big hill in between, let's face it, but water goes down. There's an aquifer underneath this whole area. That water is all shared.
You can put
So I think the thing is here is that, and you've said this too, I mean, set all the expert opinion aside. By the way, there was conflicting expert opinion on the safety of this site, and the Capital Regional District chose to think that was an acceptable risk or whatever.
Now wait, the Capital Regional District isn't really involved with any of this.
Well, they were presented with this situation a couple of years ago where somebody brought to their attention that there was a contaminated soil landfill being placed near it. And they consulted several environmental engineering firms, and there were submissions, and in the end they decided it wasn't really a risk.
So the CRD decided not to oppose it?
Not to make any bones about it, or to ask the province not to grant the license or anything like that. They couldn't see any real problem with this. So then, in their great wisdom, they decided that this is safe. Now the thing is that there's a chance that it's safe. The thing is, this is our drinking water. You don't have to put a contaminated soil landfill at the headwaters of our drinking water. You just don't have to do that. No matter how low the risk is. I mean, does that make sense to you, Jack?
Yes.
So this is all I'm saying is, they could talk all day about their experts. We are in trouble, Jack, with these sort of people running the show. And I've always said this. The CRD is untouchable. They're a bunch, who knows who they are hardly. You have a staff that runs the show, and then you have these city councilors that go trundling in there that have no expertise other than a few. We've had some people on the show here that know what they're talking about. For the most part, though, they don't know how this works, and they sit there and sounds all pretty good for them, and they pass it.
And you've noticed it as I have over the years. After we elect these people, they, for some reason, start to trust the staff and turn their back on the people of the city who are supposed to be the boss. And that is really a fundamental problem. I don't know why it happens, but it happens all the time.
Yeah, and look, my opinion is unsafe. Now, that's all I'm saying. I'm not an expert either. But this has never really been open to a discussion or a conversation. Like, this hasn't been a debate that's raging in our community.
Yeah, it should be.
It should be. We should be talking about this.
But why aren't we?
Well, it's because we're not being told about it. Fundamentally, not in these terms, at least. I'm trying to be as clear and as I can be that these are issues we have to look at.
And that is the role of the media in Canada on all the important issues. They don't report it as it really is, and the job is to keep Canadians out of the decision-making loop on all the important issues of the day, so the corporations can make the decisions without having to deal with us. And that's the way the country is run. It's completely backwards. There's virtually no democracy left in this country, and there's virtually no free press. We're one example of non-corporate media in this country. There aren't a lot, because everything else is basically owned by one of half a dozen giant corporations that basically control every TV station in the country. That's Canadian, and plus they control the cable stuff as well. Where is there a chance for people who aren't approved by the corporate elite? Where is there a chance for them to get on television, except on community TV?
Exactly. But the thing is that, just to cap this off, is that there's a discussion about amalgamation and what the community should be doing, the local municipalities, what they should be doing to cooperate for regional development. The thing is that, what we need to elect the CRD. We need to elect these guys.
But it won't make any difference. The Victoria City Council, look what they did with the Blue Bridge.
But at least they're going to answer for that. You could make them answer for it, Jack. But the CRD's removed one time from that. We don't have a prayer to get to what's happening.
There have to be rules. There have to be rules that allow the public to step in when things are taking place that we don't like.
You call that elections.
But the elections. But we need more. We need the ability to trigger votes. Why not? When things are happening, do we not have that right? Do we give away all our rights when we elect these people?
But the point I'm trying to make there is that they're trying to rejig regional, local governments and talk about amalgamation. Look at the biggest problems we're having here. The biggest problems are with the CRD. And why can't we change that organization? Well, it's because they're so removed from us. We have no access to them. People get appointed by mayors to go to the CRD. It's such a cumbersome. Nobody's there was somebody running on this issue? We're going to, we're going to allow this landfill if you elect us. We never hear about this stuff. It just happens to us. So we have to be part of the process. That's all I'm asking for, and I think anybody else would be asking for, is to let's have a discussion about this.
But we
that never
can't.
seems to happen.
I mean, we've been saying it for years, and other people have been saying it for generations. We, the people, are completely out of the loop. We are basic. And how do we, is it even possible to begin, like, I'm not seeking perfection here, but is it possible to begin to move things in a better direction? So is that possible? And if so, who's working on it? Is there anywhere we can turn? And how do we do it?
Well,
that
was a huge question. There are
so.
some very good people around this, very, very good city councilors. There are some very good people sitting on the CRD, but they're not.
And they're all good people.
They're not, I have to wonder, but they're not the majority. I think their intentions are good, but they're not the majority. There are some people that are involved that I think are much more concerned with other issues and other priorities over and above what's the best interest of the public. And we just can't tolerate that. We have to have people that we're going to go to bat for us in these organizations and stop wasting this massive amount of money on terrible projects while ignoring real threats to our health. They're negligent in so many levels. And we have to, I think, we have to have some way of accessing that. And it's not even being discussed as an option, Jack. This is electing the CRD is not on the table, on anybody's table, because they don't want that to happen, because that'll be the end of an old boys regime that's gone on here for the last 50, 75 years.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just don't see any difference. Like, we elect our provincial government. Look what a disaster in terms of democracy that is. We elect the federal government. I mean, look what a disaster that is. But, maybe we can talk about Mr. Trudeau for a couple of minutes. I don't know even what to say. I mean, I don't know. To me, big issues are proportional representation. There's almost nothing in the media about that, except the media demanding a referendum because it's democratic, right? Like the media, because they don't want electoral change. They like the system we got because they can control it the best. So because they don't want any change, now they say, we've got to have a referendum so the people can have a voice. Can you imagine? The post office, I don't know what's happening with the community mailboxes. That seems to be on hold, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the thing is, Trudeau ran on and one of the planks in his election platform was to reform the electoral system. He's done that. He's won. He has a mandate. We don't have to have any more voting. He can go ahead. We've said, please change this. The public voted.
But one problem is that Trudeau himself likes a system that personally I think is completely not proportional.
Yeah.
So if the process is fair and really finds out sort of what the public wants and that's what they recommend and that's what they do, I'm happy.
Yeah.
If they come up with something that the public doesn't want and then they say, hey, you didn't want a referendum, I'm not against referendums. I just don't think you can have one fair when the corporations own all the media.
Yeah. Trudeau did pull the fighter jets out of Syria.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. He boosted up some troops on the ground. They're supposed to be advisors. They're much more than advisors. They can call in airstrikes. They can fire back at the so-called enemy if they are fired upon. I mean, we still have troops on the ground there, and that's too bad. But he's lived up to pulling the fighter jets out. That's good. It's wildly expensive to have these fighter jets.
Also, a war crime. I mean, we are illegally attacking and bombing a sovereign nation that does not want us in there.
Yeah.
That's the nation of Syria. It is against the only way you can do this in international law is with the approval of the United Nations. And Harper did not have that when he started the bombing. We Canadians are involved in war crimes here, and we don't even know it. They don't even tell us. Not to mention the fact that it's very possible that the United States is funding ISIS. And I mean, if you Google US funds ISIS, a lot of people who are very serious believe that. Our media won't report it.
Well, you know, the Russians are invited by the Syrian government to come in and help out, and they've been cleaning house there. They've been really running successful bombing campaigns, and to the point where, in my view, the West is worried that they're cleaning up on all these so-called ISIS fighters. And
Yeah, because ISIS is.
and now they're saying we have to have a ceasefire in Syria, and that the Russian bombing's causing more refugees. And well, it looks like to me that the Russians are starting to get right at the troops that it looks like NATO trained in Turkey that have been crossing the border from Turkey.
You mean ISIS?
Yeah,
Yes.
and now it looks like they're suffering casualties there and getting hit hard. And I think that's the impetus for this call for a ceasefire. I mean, why not let the Russians clean this business up? They've been doing a great job.
Yeah, what a disaster. I mean, and Walt, we're out of time, but thanks very much.
Always a pleasure, Jack.
You know, the Syrian war was caused by the people who run the United States. That is the sad truth, and we've got to keep that in mind. Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back. This is being filmed on February 16, 2016. Our guest in this segment of Citizens Forum is Brian Burchell. Brian is with a group in Victoria called ARREST, and ARREST favors the current system of sewage treatment in the oceans. Maybe I'm putting that not as well as it could be, but
natural
Brian.
marine treatment. Yes.
Natural marine
oceans,
treatment.
Some regions of ocean, particularly off Victoria waterfront, are capable of very effective sewage treatment, and that's not ARREST's opinion. I mean, that's known around the world in the studies of sewage treatment in general and studies of the ocean, is that there are regions that are capable of replicating land-based secondary treatment of sewage.
In fact, doing better.
In some cases better, yes. It's the preferred method in some cases.
Now, the local scientific community that studies oceans, I think, agrees with your position.
Well, the other way around is that we are taking to the public the
right.
studies and the views and the conclusions of the science community. They're not agreeing with us. We're bringing forth their information. In our view, the mainstream media is not bringing that kind of information forward well enough, and the CRD also is not bringing it forward to the public about how well the current system works, how well our tax dollars have been spent to build the system that we currently have, to monitor it, to adjust it, to add things like the source control program that was added in the 90s, so that we're not putting, or we have the opportunity to not put deleterious substances into our drains. And people are on board with that. People are happy to find out there's someplace else to put substances rather than putting them down the drain.
We're often criticized, the media tells us, by Washington State. What do their marine biology scientists say?
Good question, because the complaints that we get from Washington State are from the politicians, not from the scientists. The marine scientists in the University of Washington have been part of some of the studies that are published here. There's one back in the middle 90s that involved the scientists from UBC, UVic, and from University of Washington. And they concluded that the effect of Victoria's discharge system on the Strait of Juan de Fuca was negligible. That's not my word, that's the scientist's word, negligible effect by our treatment system.
So the point that's being made here is that there is another possibility that should be on the table as this sewage treatment discussion moves. ARREST put a full-page advertisement, which was an open letter to, was it to Prime Minister Trudeau?
That's correct.
Okay. What was in the full page? Where was it, in the TC? I remember seeing it.
It was a full-page ad actually in Black Press and in the Times Colonist.
Okay. I remember seeing it. I can't remember what it said, so maybe.
Well, the gist of it was we gave lots of the evidence, or some of the evidence, that shows that the current system is working very well, such as, just for example, there's been not one case of illness that's been caused by the discharges on our waterfront. There's no threat to human health. There's no threat to the fish and the fish environment, which actually are objectives of the new federal regulations to protect fish environment, and human health. And so we pointed out some facts, some quick facts. We couldn't go on at length about it. And then we asked for, therefore, the federal, the applicable federal department to review this situation and to withhold federal funds pending a review of this whole situation. The regulations have some shortcomings in them, and they should be reviewed. And as the scientists have been saying before these regulations came into effect, was that this one-size-fits-all policy of the same treatment system right across the country is incorrect.
So you mean if our sewage was going into a river, that is considered the same risk as our sewage going into the ocean?
It's
almost,
yes.
Yeah.
You raised a good point. The federal regulations are written very much about discharges into fresh water.
So basically,
Yep.
it's very possible that we do not need sewage treatment. What was
we
the response?
have sewage treatment.
Yes,
It's the matter of
Yeah.
method. This is
What was the response from the
idea,
federal
the
government?
terminology that we don't treat is wrong. We do treat.
Yes.
We're using the ocean. The ocean waterfront here has the conditions of like a large digester pond in land-based treatment systems, where they aerate the water, force oxygen into it, and promote the growth of microbes and keep it stirred up and so on. And that's what we have here in the Strait of Juan de Fuca. It's just like a huge digester pond, which, by the way, is being run free. The energy of the tides is what drives the treatment process, which the World Bank has called auto-purification. And that process is clean, reliable, safe energy of the ocean tides, rather than land-based systems it'll require big pumps and lots of electricity. We have a very low carbon footprint system that is doing a very good job of treating our sewage. And the constant monitoring is constantly showing that the system is working very well.
And we just happen to be in a place where this works. It
That's
doesn't
right.
work in a lot of places, but it works here.
It works here. They're one of the places. Guernsey is another example. San Diego is another. There are examples around the world where the long deep sea outfalls have been carefully engineered. The local environment has been carefully studied. And it's not just being dumped into the ocean. That's what we constantly hear is we're dumping raw sewage. It's a very carefully engineered system based on U.S. research, a lot of U.S. research. This isn't just something that we are just trying to get away with. This is a carefully engineered system based on research out of the United States at University of California at Berkeley and California Institute of Technology are the two prime sources for the research behind the system that we have designed here.
What was the response from the federal government to
The federal government was that we got responses from the immediate response from the Ministry of the Environment. We got a response from the Minister of Infrastructure, and we also got a response from the Prime Minister's office. And the Prime Minister's office said that the letter was received, they acknowledged received, it's been reviewed, and the Prime Minister's office has passed our letter along to the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Infrastructure. So the Ministry of Environment and Infrastructure received the letter directly from us and now have also received it from the Prime Minister's office. And that we consider to be a very important signal that it's been sent from the Prime Minister's office, because we also know the Prime Minister is aware of this issue, personally aware of this issue. He's been here in the 2012 by-election. He was educated on this issue by David Anderson and by the candidate in the 2012 by-election. And Justin Trudeau, now Prime Minister Trudeau, was quoted in the Times Colonist. His summary of the issue was that this is a case of a push of ideology over scientific evidence. And the other thing he acknowledged was that this there'd be no net environmental benefit from this secondary treatment plant. That's his view of it, and he has not made any public statement otherwise to say that he's backed down from that view. So presumably that's still his view.
So it is possible then that the timelines that we keep hearing are driving all of this may not be in existence, really.
Yes, that's my understanding. Is Prime Minister Trudeau, again, go back to him, he's issued the ministerial mandate letters, and I've read them, they're online. I've read some of them, and particularly the one to the Minister of Infrastructure. It says right in it to remove the P3 screening process, which means to not hold up funds for infrastructure projects. So the CRD is saying that we have this deadline of March 31st, which is creating a lot of pressure. People are complaining about the decisions maybe are being made too fast, and it's because of this March 31st deadline, which is a P3 Canada deadline, which maybe doesn't even exist anymore. That may be now gone with the screening
But we
process
don't know.
gone. Sorry?
We don't know if it's gone.
We
or
don't
not.
know if it's gone or not, but certainly we see the ministerial mandate letter saying that remove that process. So that certainly raises a question there.
And remember, we're talking about $2 billion over, $1 billion plus to build and hundreds and hundreds of millions to
operate.
And for me, the number one issue is protection of the environment. But if we can, if this is doing as good a job as we can do as human beings, then we should look at it. You wanted to. Oh, sorry.
I do want to emphasize, again, this isn't a rest view that it's doing a good job.
Right.
There's the most recent study, and this is very important, is by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, their own study that was presented at UVic just last November. The conclusion of that study, I've read the whole study myself, the conclusion is that the effect of going to the land-based secondary sewage treatment that's required under the federal regulations, the effect on the straits will be negligible. Again, there's that word, negligible change to the straits. And what's really annoying here is that's a Department of Fisheries and Oceans study, and the regulations are in the Fisheries Act. So the same department is saying you got to do this multi-billion-dollar system, but their own studies are saying, but you're going to get a negligible improvement to it. That is.
Could it be any better than that?
Yeah, right.
You wanted to talk a little bit about microbeads because that's something that's going into our sewage system, and it is something that we have got to get out, get rid of.
It's an issue that people are very concerned about. Studies are showing that we should be concerned. And so there's a move afoot to locally we need to do some kind of a change to our treatment system because of microbeads. Well, the problem with that view is that around the world, it's not just Victoria has microbeads, around the world microbeads are showing up in aquatic environments because they're in products, they're in personal care products.
It's completely insane.
Manufacturers are putting them in personal care products. But those companies now that are doing that are recognizing this is an environmental problem, and they are voluntarily now saying that we are going to remove microbeads from our products.
They're so nice.
Won't be overnight, it's going to take time. But there are also jurisdictions that are now passing laws, like for example, President Obama just signed the order to now remove microbeads. So it's already by legislation, voluntarily by companies to remove them. So that they're going to be out of the products anyway, and probably within a couple of years, that's what corporations are saying, is that we'll get this, they'll change their processes within a couple of years. So by the time a treatment system is built here, because people are concerned about microbeads apparently are going to disappear from the personal care products anyway.
Brian, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a point of view we should all be considering. Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back. This is segment 3 of Citizens Forum, being filmed on Tuesday, February the 16th, 2016. Our guest in this segment is Mehdi Najari, and we're going to be talking about the process that is been ongoing for months or years to give us an answer regarding sewage treatment. So, Mehdi, maybe you can talk about this new process.
You remember why we had this new process that is starting sometimes in April, May of last year, because people did not support, and the process that they were doing beforehand was not credible for people. It has no credibility, so it was shut down. Whatever proposal, McLaughlin proposal, was shut down. So they said, oh, we are going to do it this time rightly. We are going to truly consult with people and listen to them. So and they had a new mayor. They let her to be the lead spokesperson for CIA on this issue. And we said there is hope. And the reason we said there is hope is because here I want to quote from Lisa Helps an article when she talked in Oak Bay about the sewage treatment. January 26, 2014. This is what Lisa Help said. It was in her website. Listen to citizen. I hear on regular basis the public is apathetic. Voters' turnout is low. People don't really seem to be paying attention or care about municipal issue, etc. But then, when a wide and growing sector of public step up and say, hold on, CRD official, we are not convinced that this is the best sewage treatment plant for the region. People come to open houses, pack land use committee. Oh, I'm sorry. When volunteers take the time and effort to propose an alternative plan, the right plan, when hundreds of people come to open houses, pack land use committees and council meeting, ask questions and speak up, they are treated like a nuisance. There is a sense that some CRD directors and staff wish that these people would sit down, shut up, and just let the CRD get on with its plan. I read just one more paragraph.
That was Lisa Helps.
This is Lisa Helps is saying in January 2014, almost 10 months before she became the mayor. This is not an authentic way to engage the public. It does not welcome public participation or take public input into consideration in order to create the best possible sewage treatment plan for the long term. And this is the goal, the best plan for the long term. As elected officials, we have a responsibility to listen to what our residents are saying and to consider their input in our decision-making process. This is the public who is paying for these projects. So what's happened? With the new process, they asked us to come in a workshop, a one-day workshop, it was in May, I believe, and I went. And I know you went to university, I went to conference center. And when over there, they were pushing these areas that supposedly municipality said is available for treatment plant to consider, we said, and they asked us to eliminate those that we don't like. We said we don't have enough information to eliminate any site. We don't know what technology you are using. We don't know what kind of footprint you are talking about. We can't eliminate anything. No, you have to eliminate. It was really a charade. It was obvious that they have an agenda, they want to push it through and use the public presence as a prop. And propaganda, later propaganda, that we consulted with people on every aspect of these projects right from the beginning to the end. And that is what exactly they are saying. I want to say...
I agree 100%. I was at a meeting and that's...
And here is another thing Lisa Helps, January 19, 2014, her Facebook. She put a message in her Facebook, $100 million treasury sewage treatment plant in Modesto, California, 780 million secondary treatment plant in Greater Victoria. So she's mocking it. Now we should say $100 million treasury sewage treatment in Modesto, California, $1 billion boondoggle in Victoria, British Columbia. What is this? Why are these people changed so much from when they are not in charge and when they become in charge? What's going on?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
In Modesto, California, the population of Modesto is about 210,000 people. And this plant, the $100 million treasury plant that will be finished this year, they started it 2 years ago and they are going to finish it this year, that plant is going to encompass more than Modesto. There are smaller cities of 70,000 and so on, so forth. So it's almost the same size population of Greater Victoria, 300,000.
So you're saying they're doing that for $100 million?
That's what Lisa Help said. She was mocking the CRD at that time in 2014. So now that she's in charge of it, no more mocking.
So what's going on? I mean, because big decisions are being made this month.
Yes, and this so-called big decision is being made. They are saying that We have to do it because we have a mandate by federal government in order to protect that $83.4 million for P3. We have to do it, otherwise we are going to lose that money. And they repeat this. Let me tell you this. In the Times columnist, I want to quote on 3 different articles. One is from November 30th. The headline is Explainer, Capital Sewage Treatment, Secondary versus Tertiary, and more. So they are explaining everything with maps and everything. So what they say, all this is being done against the backdrop of March 31st deadline to preserve $88 million in federal funding for the project. The CRD has until March 2016 to submit detailed plan for wastewater treatment or risk losing $83.4 million. So
That's from the TC.
that's from TC. That's November 30th. On December 5th, Mr. Bill Cleverly article is saying the CRD has until March 2016 to submit detailed plan for wastewater treatment. Actually, the same thing was cut and paste here, the same statement. And then on January 13 of this year, Mr. Richard Watt, under the heading of underground sewage plant pitched for CRD, he is repeating the same mantra again. He said the CRD has until the end of March to submit detailed plan to treat its wastewater or risk losing at least $83.4 million.
Okay, so is that correct?
It is bogus because, first of all, that was under Harper government. The new government, as Brian mentioned to you, your last guest, when Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau issued his mandate letter to Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, Mr. Amarjit Sohi, he said, take that requirement out. So there is no more requirement for every project more than $100 million, it has to go through P3. And also, Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister Trudeau said, and I think Brian mentioned it, I want to quote from what he said in 2012. I think the big issue is evidence-based policy. Trudeau said in an interview, the decision is how we are going to spend infrastructure money and taxpayers' money. I think there are enough questions about the choices being made that should make people realize it is a push of ideology over actual scientific evidence. There is no net environmental benefit to this secondary sewage treatment plant. And we are saying, why are we spending $1 billion if you guys claiming that you are going to do it for protection of environment? What is the environmental benefit? Negligible, according to the fishery study. And every scientist are telling us. So why are you doing this? The reason they are doing it, I think, although Times columnist is doing very bad job, there is one publication doing wonderful job, and we are lucky to have them, and that is Focus Magazine. Please go to either get a copy of Focus Magazine or read the article online. Mr. John Broadland has done magnificent job of explaining other options, explaining who is benefiting. We have to ask, who is benefiting from a project to spend $1 billion and not much benefit?
So who's benefiting?
Broadland said courageously, it's the engineering and consulting and construction company. These are the same companies that put a lots of money into the coffer of Liberal Party here in British Columbia. We are tired of doing things using taxpayers' money for the benefit of the special interest. Let me tell you about our provincial government mandate. 3 projects. The Run of the River project. They gave away our rivers to private interests, and then they promised them, they signed contract that we buy energy from you 2 times market price. And who is going to pay? Us. That's why our hydro is going up. They spent $700 million for a transmission line to Stewart. For whose interest? For the mining company there, the Imperial Mine, Red Crescent Mine. $700 million. Who pay for it? You and me. They want to get rid of the Massey Tunnel to build a bridge. Why? because Mr. Jimmy Pattison and the Vancouver port want that. It's not because of we needed it. So how much we are going to spend? $4 to $5 billion. Who is paying us? Who is benefiting? Mr. Pattison and other shippers. What is going on here? How much are we going to take? It's time right now for CRD. First of all, they never look at seriously alternative, innovative alternative.
They haven't, but Mehdi, we're out of time.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much for a picture that we've all got to keep in mind, folks. It's being done right in front of our eyes, and the role of the media in making sure we don't know any of these things it's a tragedy for us all. Thank you, Mehdi.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back. This is being filmed on Tuesday, February the 16th, 2016. Our guest in this segment is Bill Negreyev.
That's correct,
and
yeah.
Bill is the manager of the BC Pain Society store on Quadra here in Victoria. And we're going to start by talking about, I think, a bit of the history of...
Yeah, the origin of BC Pain Society. It goes back to around the turn of the century, as I like to say, some 15 or 16 years ago. My nephew, Chuck Verabioff, who is the proprietor of our Vancouver, our flagship store, had a friend who was diagnosed with cancer, and Chuck assisted him in finding a path to medical marijuana. And the federal government program at that time was quite new. There was little information generally available, easily available, on how to sign on if one had a medical need. So Chuck did a bit of research, and he got our friend Rob signed up. He got him a license to possess, and he did so through a licensed producer that he knew of in Grand Forks, BC. Subsequent to that, once Rob, our friend Rob, was fully licensed, I believe the producer that Chuck had worked with was quite impressed with his efforts and the effectiveness with which he pursued and accomplished his goal. So Chuck began to work for licensed producers, again back around 2000 or 2001, assisting people who applied to them, assisting people with medical needs who approached them, assisting them in going through the federal bureaucracy, right, through the procedure. Chuck spent a few years doing that, working on behalf of the patients, but essentially employed by the producers to bring producers together with patients. And then there arose a need. Standards began to develop. I don't think they were imposed initially right away, but standards began to develop regarding potency and quality and so on. And Chuck took it one step further and bought an old ambulance and equipped it with a mobile testing lab, and used to go around primarily the Lower Mainland, testing for licensed producers. And he spent a number of years at that as well.
So he would test what they grew.
He would test what they grew.
To see that it met a standard.
To see that it met standards, yes. After doing that for a number of years, and his efforts, his activities became concentrated in the Lower Mainland. He worked around Vancouver a lot, according to our conversations, and he realized that there was still a great gap between supply and demand. Right, there was a chasm, if you will, and compassion clubs began to open up and they would go to suppliers and, you know, obtain product, medication to supply to their members, their patients. And at that point, he made a decision to open a dispensary. And I believe it was on Kingsway, BC Pain Society, nonprofit organization. And that was some 3 years ago. And in the 3 years since then, they've moved locations. They've opened up a second location. They have one at 2902 Commercial and one at Broadway and Renfrew in Vancouver. They use the same vending machine method that we do here in Victoria. But when that store began to increase its volume, Chuck approached me, his uncle, to assist him in creating a secure membership database, because that's my background. And I was not really an advocate. I wasn't really aware of much about the medical marijuana situation.
Oh, really?
No, I wasn't. So about 1.5 years ago, I began to assist him in developing a secure, you know, patient, customer, member database. And in traveling over to Vancouver and seeing what was going on there, I soon, very quickly, became convinced of the legitimacy of medical marijuana, right, and the you know, medicinal benefits of it. So after I was involved with Chuck in that capacity for some 6 months, about 1 year ago, he suggested that we open an operation here in Victoria, and we found a location and consulted with City Hall. Of course, at that time, they were unable to license us, but they didn't discourage us. They just said that we were on our own, and it was a gray area. We consulted with the police, and they, you know, had pretty much the same message that there were no standards, no regulations in place, and that we couldn't be licensed. But they encouraged us to apply for a business license. We have an application pending now, and we've been open since April 10th. And we've increased our local membership to, we're just 18 members short of 1,000 here in Victoria in the first year. And that's up to the minute. Story of BC Pain Society in Victoria.
Okay. So you've got almost 1,000 members,
Mm-hmm.
and why do these members come to the BC Pain Society?
Because they have issues with pain. I have learned, and as I say, I'm kind of a latecomer to the cause. I've learned that marijuana or cannabis is a very effective treatment for neuropathic pain, and that's pain associated with arthritis, fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, and a number of other ailments. Somebody mentioned earlier, somebody asked about prescriptions. We are not authorized to honor a doctor's prescription, even if they directly prescribe cannabis, because we're not pharmacies. What we do is we certainly, if a doctor has prescribed it or recommended it, we will provide a membership based on that. Okay. We will provide a membership based on proof of diagnosis of conditions that are commonly and reasonably believed to be treatable with cannabis, you know, in whatever form. And we will also provide an alternative to narcotic or opioid pain relief. So if somebody comes in with an active prescription for OxyContin, for instance, we will sign them up as a member, because we feel we feel that cannabis is a more humane and I think much safer alternative to opioid or narcotic pain relief.
So, I mean, personally, I think all of these shops and organizations do a lot of good work for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's not only, I believe it's not only pain, which cannabis reportedly does an excellent job of in many cases, but other illnesses as
Yes,
well.
yes. There are anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. I think is well treated with certain strains of cannabis. Indica strain, or the indica type, is very effective with in most cases generalized anxiety disorder. We do at BC Pain Society. I know that some of the other clubs do provide membership based on depression or even psychosis, but I draw the line there because I feel that depression, and I'm certainly not a diagnostician. I'm, have no medical qualifications at all, but and for that reason, we do not provide cannabis based on proof of diagnosis of depression or bipolar disorder or psychosis.
Bill, we've only got a minute left.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about where you think the law of the land should go on this.
Well, I think that's a two-pronged issue.
30 seconds each.
30 seconds each. Okay. I believe that it's right that the federal government moved to legalize it for recreational use, but I think that the distribution and regulation and such is so complex that I would be disappointed if they came up with something any sooner than 6 to 8 months from now, because I would question how well thought out it was. I think in the medical area, I'm really looking forward to the imposition or implementation of a regulatory structure that the city of Victoria is planning. They
We're out of time. We're going to have to leave it at that. I'm sorry.
Really?
Yeah. Next time.
Was
We'll
that
move
12
ahead. That was
minutes?
12 minutes, believe it or not. Folks, thank you very much. Another very important issue. Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
And thank you for watching this week's Citizens Forum.